Hello, everyone. Alexandra here. If you're just tuning in to the podcast for the very first time, welcome to Take a Chance on You. If you're a long-time listener, welcome back. We're into season 2, Leaders on Their Way and Aspiring. Season 1, we covered hidden talent, where I explored students and young people entering the workforce, going through their applications for apprenticeships, internships, they're volunteering, and they really relate their stories for the very first time. Season 2, with leaders, we have some fantastic guests joining me to discuss some of the challenges that they're facing, what it means to be a leader in 2025 and beyond. So I'm so excited to have you here. I think what's really unique and special about Take a Chance on You is it was born out of an idea that I had from networking here in London in 2024. I was talking to strangers. I'd meet them for the first time and we talk about the challenges we were facing together, lack of community, resources, and being able to have easy flowing conversations. And I always said to myself, if I was going to launch a podcast, it would be to reflect that and to continue those conversations. So Take a Chance on You is very special. As I say, we're into season 2. I'm so excited to have you here and I hope you enjoy the episodes to come.
Feeling lost in the noise of social media? Inspo cuts through the clutter, connecting you directly with real insights from real experts and industry leaders. It's a new social network dedicated to knowledge sharing, industry insights, and thought leadership. Get the latest from top minds in your field, or build your own thought leadership portfolio on Inspo. Already trusted by thousands of professionals worldwide, be part of the conversation and download Inspo Experts today on the App Store or visit www.inspo.expert.
Welcome back to the Take a Chance on You podcast, hosted by me, Alexandra Forsyth. Today, I am so excited to be passing the mic to Tasha Turnbull, who is the Senior Account Manager of Mitchell & Stones Limited. This is a Southampton-based outsourced marketing department. Tasha, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Alexandra. Thank you for asking. Good morning. I'm so happy to be here.
Good morning. It's cold, as you can see. I think Tasha is looking...
I've got my
You're
heating
looking
on.
better than I do. I've got my gilet on and I'm very, very cold. Tasha and I actually met at a recent event. We went to Major Events International, which was looking into festivals, culture, and just how the landscape's changing and will continue to change over the next few years. And Tasha and I were sat together at the gala dinner in the evening. And I was listening to Tasha's story and she was mentioning kind of COVID, going into your first role, seeing teams be built from the ground up. So do you want to give the listeners a little bit of an introduction and then we'll take it from there?
Yeah, so it was obviously such a pleasure to meet you at the Event Summit. And you
I kept getting up.
Yeah,
I know, I had to keep getting up.
You were on shift that day, so fair play. But it was such a pleasure to just be randomly seated next to you, Alexandra, so that was lovely.
It's never random.
Yeah, it's never random. Everything happens for a reason. But yes, I was the first employee at Mitchell & Stones, which I tell people all the time. It's kind of my initial intro when I speak to people about my career. But I think it's quite a crazy thing. I don't think many people have experienced being the first employee of a startup and then, seeing all eras of that business's growth. So I've been with Mitchell & Stones for 7 years now, and I've gone from kind of part-time social media assistants to now being a senior account manager with a team of 7 across 2 different countries and clients across the UK and internationally. So I feel very privileged to have had the experience that I've had so far.
It's amazing. And we were talking before the podcast how you've been traveling quite a lot and the opportunity to meet your team in person. Because as you said, there's 7 of you now, but you're dotted around. It's quite sporadic.
Yeah, so I have a team of 7, but there's other team members as well. And we've got a kind of base here in Southampton. And then we've also got a wonderful team in South Africa, which is where I just got back from. And as I was saying to you, it's just so crazy to meet people and be able to poke their face when you have only seen them through a screen for years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was again an amazing experience that's been facilitated by the business and something that again I'm so grateful for. And yeah, that kind of the growth of that branch for us is something that I was there throughout. And now, although it has been hard to get to this point, it's now reaping massive rewards, and they're such a amazing addition to our team. I couldn't really picture life without them now. So I'm just so grateful I got to meet them in person. It makes such a difference as a manager.
But it's such an undertaking, your first role in a startup. I mean, we know startup culture is the hustle and bustle, it's the grind, it's the grit. You just have to get up and make it happen. That's what
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur is also like. I put entrepreneurship and startup very much together in the same pool. But talk to me a little bit, your first role out of university, I might add. And when you were at university, you were studying film, am I
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And so there are quite a lot of parallels, actually.
Yeah.
Fair few of our team actually studied film, and I meet people in marketing quite often that have that kind of background. But when I chose to do film, I didn't have it in my mind that I would go on to do marketing. But now that I'm in this industry, I do see where the parallels are, especially just from like a creative thinking perspective. But yeah, I met my current boss whilst doing my part-time job in a nightclub, actually, where I was working as a member of the promotions team. So that was kind of marketing related, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I met him, and he was working as one of the marketing managers at the nightclub. And I was only 18, but this is a piece of advice I give a lot. I just tried so hard, even though I was, just in a small part-time role just to support myself while I was at university. I just gave it my absolute all. And really tried to impress my boss, even though I didn't need to go above and beyond. I still would have got paid the same. I did go above and beyond, and it resulted in, at the end of my degree, me getting offered a full-time role in the business that he and his business partner, Chris, had just started. So yeah, that's always the thing that I say, especially when I get to speak to students and people that are just starting in marketing. I always make sure I make that point of, regardless of what role you're in, just try really, really hard, because you don't know where that could potentially lead. And if I hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't have made that connection with my current employer. And I therefore would have potentially not have had the career that I've been lucky enough to have so far. So yeah, that was how we met. And then the first office we had, it was kind of I got thrown in at the deep end, right, into full-time work, literally the day that I finished my assessments. So I was the next day in the office. And the first office was like a little box office. It was so small that if I moved my chair backwards, I'd be knocking into the chairs of our directors. And it was also a storage cupboard, so it was just full of stuff. You couldn't really get anywhere. But we just tried to just do something every day. At the time, we had like not really a proper product, to be honest, not really a proper business right at the beginning. But as is startup nature, right, you just sort of come in each day and try to make things a little bit better until eventually things click, which they luckily did for us. And then we realized that our product was outsourced marketing department, and we saw that gap in the market for a proper offering that is essentially the same price as a single salary, but gives appropriate sized businesses access to an entire marketing department, an entire team. So sometimes an internal marketing manager, an internal marketing department is right for a business, obviously, but sometimes we just find that business owners don't have the time or money or knowledge to make that work. Just outsourcing it to someone like us, where we can just plug in and get the job done, that can work better sometimes. So once we'd found that niche, we were flying, really. And then I started to get promoted, and 7 years later, here I am.
It's so crazy when guests come on this podcast and they tell me their stories, and I don't know what you're going to say, and I do just want to really preface that to the listeners. Sometimes I'll do a prep call with the guests, sometimes I won't, because I'm getting to the stage now where I really just want you to feel comfortable to come on and talk, and then I'll listen and ask you questions based off of what you say. So Tasha, everything she's just said, I'm also hearing for the very first time. I've heard some of it when we met at the gala dinner, but now it's for the first time. Really solid piece of advice. Any role that you're in, whether it's during university, whether you're taking a gap year, because we know that before university a lot of people do that, or even whilst you're studying at sixth form or college or secondary school, because you can start work from 15, 16, 17, get a part-time job somewhere. So whatever stage of life you're at, treating it as if it's an opportunity to meet other people, make those connections, build a community. So as you said, you just never know where it's going to lead.
No, exactly. I mean, it's like the Downing Street thing, right? Not to bring that up, but
Do you know that is hilarious that you've just said that, because I've got it written down on here, Downing Street. And do you want to know why? Because I had another guest come on my podcast, Louis, who is the founder of Clear for Men, a skincare brand trying to break down barriers, vulnerability in men. Fantastic brand. If you can, go and have a look at it. Louis has also been to Downing Street and been invited. And then when I saw you had,
wow.
I thought to myself, where's my invite? When am
I'll
I
try
going
and
to
get you
Downing Street?
one. I'll try and get you one, Alex. I'll see
But
what strings I can pull.
I've written it down, so yes, I want to come on to that. So talk about that, and then we'll go back once more.
It's another example, I think, of you just don't know where things are going to lead. Like, whatever environment you're in or whatever situation you're in, like, just try and be yourself and really try and make an impression on somebody, and you don't know what could come from that. So I'll give you the short version, because I tell this story quite often. Anyone that knows me that's listening to this is going to think, here she goes again. But I got really
I'm hearing
luckily,
it for the first time, and the listeners will be as well.
I got really luckily invited to Number 10 Downing Street as part of a work event. We work with an amazing international computer and education charity, and as part of London Tech Week, and as part of their 25th anniversary of being a charity, they were allowed to have their event inside Number 10. And at the time, I was the marketing manager and they were one of our clients, right? So I got to go, but my responsibilities were very slim. My responsibilities were give everyone their lanyard and put the flyers on the table. That was the result.
Best job in the world.
That was the extent of my day, right? And take a photo next to the door, obviously. Now, you can't take any photos inside. They take your phones off you. You go through like airport level security. You know, the armed police at the gates. Like, it's quite intense. Obviously, as you would expect, right? It is like exactly like it is in the film. All the films and all TV where you see Number 10. Like, even when I was going up the staircase with all the previous prime ministers' pictures up the wall, I said to one of the ladies that was there, "Oh my God, this is the Love Actually staircase." She said, "Yeah." So it was amazing to be there, but I was very aware that I was the least important person in the room by a far mile, right? But I still just got chatting to this man who had like taken us to the room, and because he'd kind of taken us to the room, I'd assumed like, you know, he seems really nice, like he just works here, he's sorting out the teas and the coffees, and I got chatting to him about what I do and about what the client is trying to achieve and kind of what our plans were for the coming months. And he just seemed really interested. So we were having a wonderful back and forth conversation, and we were also having a bit of a laugh as well, because I was being myself. And I then suggested that we connected on LinkedIn. He said, "Yeah, great idea." And I showed him how to do so with the automatic QR code. That blew his mind. It was like he'd never seen a QR code before, but that blew his mind conveniently. And then because he'd scanned it, the connection request came through and it said, "Official advisor to the Prime Minister."
Wow.
And I thought, oh, he's really important. And then we stayed in touch after the event, and we had a bit of back and forth messaging. And then there was a scenario where I was in London again for a concert, actually, a Red Hot Chili Pepper concert. Ooh. And I'd mentioned to him that I was in London. It was like a weekday because I had the day off from work. So it was a weekday. So he was working. And I will never, ever forget receiving this message. But I just received 3 p.m. full stop. Come to Number 10 full stop. And I thought, wow, that can't be. I thought that can't be real. I feel
like I'm living it in my mind. Whenever I hear a story, I'm visualizing it all happening. The message.
It was. Well, I was on the tube at the time, so you know when you've got intermittent reception, it just came through, and I couldn't reply.
And you can't respond. Yeah, you can't respond.
Then I went into the tunnel, so I was like, oh no. But I did respond, and I was in London with my partner, and he had to call his family who we were meant to be meeting and be like, "We're going to have to meet you a bit later. Tasha's got a meeting." And they were like, "A meeting? Thought she had the day off." And he was like, "No, she has a meeting at Number 10. They were like, "Number 10 what?" And he was like, "The Number 10. So, yeah, long story short, I got invited back by this guy because I'd made an impression on him. And this time I was going back on my own. Thank goodness I wore a blazer that day and I wasn't just wearing like a Red Hot Chili Peppers t-shirt or something.
Do you think you could
And
still go in if you did that?
well, it's
I
been a
think
change of government since, Alex, so I'm not sure if he works there anymore.
you'd have to just go and buy a blazer, wouldn't you? You'd have to
Yeah,
just
I was just
get
trying.
yourself
I
off to a
just,
shop.
yeah, exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking about how you could do things if you weren't prepared.
Luckily, I was. Just stay
Yeah.
prepared, guys. There's another piece of advice. Stay prepared. So
No,
I got a private guided tour. It was incredible.
And just on that point, I would say be prepared. I sometimes always take an extra pair of shoes. If I'm
Ooh.
out for the whole day and I don't know, there's something happening in the evening, I take a spare blazer. I do really believe in that. You never know. You really never know, especially
You
in
never know
London.
when you're going to be invited to number 10, guys. So just in
No.
case.
It's crazy.
So
So
yeah,
you were
that's just
you were
just
given a
another
guided tour.
example.
Yeah, so you're given a guided tour. Anything else happen in terms of, I mean, that's a really strong connection to have because you never know.
Yeah.
Sometimes things don't happen straight away. And I think onto your point, receiving that message is absolutely amazing. I do encourage people, if you've made a connection, it might be 6 months before you
Yeah.
reconnect again, but don't lose hope because a connection's a connection. You want to build those strong relationships and you clearly did.
Yeah, it was a few months later, and it was because we'd stayed in touch and I'd nurtured that relationship. So yeah, it's just an example of you never know who you're speaking to.
You never know. And I really loved how you said you were just being yourself, because I think that's also a strong point. Authenticity. It's not always about a sales pitch. Sometimes
No.
I remember going to a few networking events last year and they were real sales pitchy and people were just
Right.
coming up to me, asking my name, what do you do? And then straight away they'd head into, we offer these products. This is the type of business we're running. And I think that's great, but I'm not looking for that. I'm here because
Yeah.
I want to speak to people and see possibly where it might go later on. So I really loved how you mentioned being yourself, because if you can't be yourself, just try as best you can.
Yeah.
I know it's really hard for some people listening that are quite young and they feel that maybe they possibly don't have the experience or don't have the background, so they might try and inflate certain things when they're having conversations. But as Tash mentioned, it's just being yourself, being authentic. Both of those stories are absolutely fantastic. You started working in a nightclub, still doing the marketing promotion side, which was somewhat aligning already with your chosen career path. You just possibly didn't see it fully.
Yeah.
You possibly knew secretly that that was something you enjoyed and you lent
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah, I'd never thought about marketing before I had that role. And then as soon as I did start to think, yeah, maybe this would be, because when I chose to do film, it was just because I enjoyed film. It wasn't because I wanted to be a director or a DP or anything like that. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So it's all just kind of fallen into place. And again, not necessarily because of me applying for hundreds of job roles and finally getting the one that I wanted, literally because I met the right person at the right time and then I made an impression on them. So yeah, it's all still come about from networking and from real in-person connections.
And talk to me a little bit about the film side. So what did you do prior to university? Were you always quite creative?
Yeah. So I do like art and things like that outside of work. And so like I would never buy a greetings card, like a birthday or like Christmas card in the shop. I'd always make one because I just look at them and I think I can just make that.
Yeah.
And I love a homemade gift. And yeah, I've always enjoyed film and also enjoyed the like study of film, like the theory as well. And things like English language. So all of those things now, when you like break it down, actually have such parallels in marketing with obviously copywriting, video productions, photography, creative thinking, conceptual, work. Like the parallels when you think about it like that are obvious. But I never thought about the marketing industry until Josh Mitchell literally said to me, "Do you want a job in marketing?" To which I went, "Yeah, I guess."
And so 2 questions. My first one, you do a lot of work with students, and I have seen that you've presented at some universities. What are the students studying? Because obviously you're presenting your career and everything you've done. So what kind of questions do they ask you?
So I often I do a lot of alumni work with University of Winchester, which is where I attended, and actually where a lot of us attended from Mitchell and Stone. So some of our other account managers and both of our directors, like we're very Uni of
So
Winchestery
interesting.
over there. And we've done work with the University of Winchester as well. So we know them quite well. And although I did film, I'm often speaking with the media and communications students, which is obviously a bit more directly related to what I do now. And sometimes just the general kind of media department, which includes a lot of different courses. A lot of them ask me if we're hiring, and sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no. We're still a small business, so that's obviously, dependent. A lot of them, do ask specifics about kind of how I've got to where I have, and like, if you've got any advice for my CV, for my LinkedIn. I've done LinkedIn presentations for the students before, and that's something that I guess is in that similar strain of like, just put yourself out there. What's the worst that's going to happen, But they still have a certain level of anxiety around doing that, of course, if they feel like they're inexperienced. But, I just try and change their mindset, because a lot of that is, what's it called? When you think imposter syndrome, that's it. A lot of that is imposter syndrome. And I try and sway them away from that and say, listen, everyone starts somewhere, and you still have thoughts and opinions, even if you don't have cold, hard work experience, you still have thoughts and opinions that are valuable.
And I think also another word alongside imposter syndrome, limiting beliefs. Been talking a lot recently with a friend of mine about limiting beliefs and how sometimes they can be ingrained in us from a very young age. So we grow up into adulthood. University is a prime example. When you're growing up, you're a young adult, you move through adolescence, and now you can think for yourself and make your own decisions. That can actually be scarier, because if you haven't had that or had a good sounding board around you, it can feel quite intimidating, as you say, to kind of open up a LinkedIn, start sharing your voice projects, reach out to people. I was exactly the same when I moved to London. I didn't know what networking was. I'm from a very small town in the West Midlands. So for me, London was this big Pandora's box where I thought, oh my God, there's every type of person here, every type of conversation. How do I stand out? And I think you mentioned that before. Standing out is, how do you do that? So I think it's fantastic that you're teaching that LinkedIn side, because now, obviously, for us, I mean, I just message everyone. I'm such a sucker for LinkedIn. I don't even know what I'm doing half the time. I'll just post, I'll just like stuff, I'll message people. I use it as kind of a contact list, really, because you build a community and then you just reach out to people for different things. So you will find your voice, is what I say to students now. You will find it. Don't get too overwhelmed with it. Don't think I've got to do all of these things today to make an impression. But on the point of standing out, if you could go back, do you think, to university and do it all again, do you think there's anything that you'd do a little bit differently?
Well, my university experience wasn't very normal, because I was during the pandemic is when I was studying, right? So not... you don't need to get out your tiny violin. I know everyone had a hard time during the pandemic. And luckily, the digital marketing industry did all right, because it's all online anyway. So it didn't affect us hugely, but it did affect my university experience. So for essentially my second and third year, there was a lot of restrictions. And because I was doing a practical course, because I was doing film, it meant that there was actual restrictions on the kit. So University of Winchester has excellent filming equipment, right? And for a time period, we were able to use it, but it had to go into like a quarantined room for a few days before anyone else could then use it, to make sure that it was safe. But unfortunately, right when I had to do my final assessment, my final major piece, that was during the time period where we weren't allowed on campus at all. So we were all living back at home all over the country with our families. And it was also during the time period where we couldn't take out the kit, because you weren't allowed to even go onto campus to get it. So I had to film my final major project. The accumulation of my 3 years of studying film was filmed on my personal iPhone, and I had to have the most makeshift lighting setup you've ever heard of. So I remember we ended up putting together a piece that was like kind of video style, in terms of like the scenarios that we were setting up, a bit like this really, so that it could be filmed either on a phone or on a Mac, and the scene is happening digitally, and that's part of the context of the story. So we had to adapt the script to fit the crazy scenario that we were in the first place. And then I remember there was a scene of me, piece to camera, and I had no tripod, I had no lights. So I had my phone resting on a chair in front of me on books. So it's exactly the right height that I needed it to be at. I had a clothes horse to my left with a like desk lamp shoved through the wires of the clothes horse, put at the exact right angle so that it was the fill light that I needed it to be. And then on the other side, I had the curtains open just the right amount to let enough light in from that side. So somehow I still managed to do a 3-point lighting setup, which my lecturers would be really happy about. But it was very makeshift, and it was ultimate levels of problem solving, which luckily is now something that I can translate into my role every single day. But that's another story that I tell the students often. I do give that tone of like, listen, guys, I know you think your degrees are hard, but just give a listen to the situation that I was in. I still got a first, so.
It's amazing and such a good achievement. A shout out to Apple, I mean the iPhone. Why
Yeah.
not? I remember with the first season of the podcast, I was exactly the same. I didn't have a camera set up. The studio was fantastic, but it was audio. There was no lighting or anything like that. So I just had my iPhone with the tripod filming the guests, and I thought, well, I can't film both of us, so at least I can just film them. You make it happen. You really do. I think if you're passionate about something and you're on a budget or you're on a time limit and you've got to action this right now, as you say, that problem solving, you find a way. You really do. There's no kind of if, it's when, it's how are we going to do this. That's it.
Yeah,
I think that's
100%.
that resiliency comes to mind, and how you can put that over to the student. And later on in your career, when you're training junior members of your team, those stories coming through are so powerful.
Yeah, we have such a problem solving mindset. So like, for example, now we have a culture where we have something called low quality question. So if someone asks a low quality question, we have a culture where you can just tell them, you can just say, guys, that's a low quality question. I'm not even going to answer that. And that basically means like that person can very, very easily find that information themselves. So yeah, we have a culture of only asking high quality questions and always being solutions led. So you're always, even if you're a junior team member, you are expected, if you bring a problem to the table, or if you need to raise an issue to management, you're expected to bring a suggested solution with that. Even if that's not the solution that management go with, you are expected to be thinking, okay, but how can I fix this all the time?
It puts you in the driver's seat from day one, essentially. If you do have a question, like you said, low quality, you want them to ask high quality questions. If they do come with a question, already they should be thinking, this is how I would do it. What do you think? And then you're putting it's a back and forth. It's you're being challenged, but you're also challenging assumptions as well, which I think again is really powerful. And it's, if we look at the trends with students, when I've been going to universities, they're learning about entrepreneurship and leadership from a very young age. It's no longer they're waiting until they're in the workforce. So the landscape in terms of employability is going to evolve, I think, at a rapid pace the next few years.
100%. That mindset shift as well is something that I think comes through reinforcement. Like nowadays, I trust my own decision making quite a lot, right? But I remember a time when I didn't. I remember when I was more junior, where I'd very much be like, oh, maybe this is a good idea, maybe it's not, maybe I shouldn't say it. But now that we have that culture of bring the solution, or at least say, here's how I think I should do it, is that right? You're just kind of double checking. The answer from me is usually bang on. Yeah, you got it. Yes, that's what you should do. And then that reinforces to them, obviously, that they knew the answer anyway. And then that tells them that they can trust their own instincts and their own decision making as they go forward and as they progress in their careers. So it's like a confidence building activity as well.
Just about to say, confidence comes to mind, self-esteem. We want people in the workplace to feel empowered and to feel like they can make their own decisions. We don't want micromanagement. We want trust and respect, and to build that from day one. So it leads me on to my next question. In terms of marketing, what do you think 2026 is looking like for you? And just in terms of the landscape, marketing, like you said, the role is so varied. You've got social media marketing, and there's just so many different undertakings.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the age of AI now, isn't it? It's changing daily. I think ChatGPT went down the other day for a few hours, and it was like the world came crumbling down. No one really knew what to do with themselves, which is scary, really, how reliant we are on that now.
And do you know, not just ChatGPT, some of the software solutions, I know that AWS and Azure have been going down. Cloudflare a few days ago having trouble, and it just shows you reliance on one solution or one open source tool as ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot. I mean, in cybersecurity, we've been thinking, how do we put together a workflow when everything does go down? When we can't access technology, do we need to have pen and paper, manual processes, and actually design a workflow for that? Because not everything is finite.
It's good that you're thinking like that, because I don't think that many people do.
No.
I think a lot of people would say pen and paper, what's that?
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, it's going to be obviously the main thing over the next year. We are seeing it very much as like a piece of assistive technology to what we already do well. So we're not scared of it. I know there's a bit of a narrative about AI is going to take all of our jobs. We are still very firmly of the position that the human element that we bring to the table and the strategic thinking and connections that our human brains can make can't really be beaten by a machine, not yet anyway. So yeah, we're actually excited about how AI can make what we do for our clients even better and just make us more efficient and quicker, but still bringing the same quality and level of strategy to our clients. Yeah.
And that's brilliant, embracing it. I do say a business enabler. It's not a replacement for human beings and jobs. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were saying the dot-com boom, when the internet, everybody was talking about that and how it would eradicate some of the jobs, but actually it enhanced them, and your jobs evolve, and they will again. And our jobs in the next 5 to 10 years, there'll be a host of new jobs available, but also we will just evolve and shift. And I've been reading as well, looking at what we're passionate about now. If we have AI and it can automate, 60% of our current role, so we've got 40% left, what else do you want to do in the company? Is there another department you might like to work with? Is there another role that you might like to dabble in? You've got a bit of freedom, I like to say, now that we have that technology piece.
Yeah. 100%. There's roles that don't even exist yet, that we can't even fathom, that will be around in the next 5-10 years.
Absolutely.
And also the AI software is only as good as the person that's using it. The result is only going to be as strong as the prompt that was put in the first place. So I imagine there'll be roles like AI prompter, like that will literally be your role in a company. Yeah, that's a learning piece as well. At the minute, most people using it are using it at quite a surface level, and just kind of starting to come to terms with what it is and what it can do. But in the next few years, people will only progress. It's very similar to when the first touchscreen smartphone came out. People were sort of starting to try and figure out how to use it, and now everyone's like blah, 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 blah.
It's really funny you say that, because I was watching randomly on YouTube Steve Jobs when he announced the first iPhone, and you were seeing kind of the camera pan to the audience, and there are a lot of people looked really eager and waiting in anticipation, but there were some people who were looking at the stage thinking, what's the iPhone? I can't imagine how that must have felt to be in a room when Apple would building something that's completely revolutionized the way we communicate with each other. And so it's as you say, there's people embracing it, there's pros and cons to all technology, if I'm honest. And I think a lot of people are dabbling in Copilot. Definitely. I think everybody's pretty much using that. So it's as we say, we'll see what happens in the next few years. But if you could offer any last strategies out to the listeners, you said standing out, you've given some fantastic examples of how you've grown your confidence and connected with people. What would you say now?
Yeah, try hard regardless of the scenario you're in is always one of my go-tos, and try and make a good impression on people and nurture relationships and network, of course. But I think also maybe just don't take things so seriously. When I was first coming into what could be considered a bit of a corporate career, I think I had so much pressure on myself, little 18-year-old me, 20-year-old me, to be really serious and really professional, and this is what professional means, and you have to dress like this and speak like this, and don't say that, and don't ask a silly question because you'll that will be bad. I feel like I had so much head trash around how I needed to be perceived in a professional environment that it actually meant that I wasn't really being myself. And it was only when I started to relax and realise that, hang on, even though I'm working and this is a client and a supplier relationship, there's still a human being speaking to another human being. I can still have a connection with them. We can still have a laugh. We can still actually get on. And that helps, because typically people want to continue working with people that they like. So I would say, don't worry about how you're perceived. As long as you're still being, professional to an extent, just try and make sure your personality comes across in your work as well, because typically that does well.
As the saying goes, people buy from people. And people want to interact with each other on a human level. And when I'm talking to leaders and C-suite, they don't care about Alexandra Forsyth, the analyst, etc. They care about what I have to say and the recommendations that I'm going to put forward. So I completely agree with that. Be yourself. It will get you further than you can ever imagine. So that was Tasha Turnbull, the Senior Account Manager of Mitchell & Stone, joining today on Take a Chance on You, and I will see you all very, very soon. Bye.